Hello everyone, this is White Wolf. We're going live, and I wanted to talk about vulnerability being a release. Whenever we're vulnerable, we allow ourselves to release from our triggers, from our awareness, from the experiences that we have, and being able to actually learn from them, actually gauge from what we're experiencing and why the trigger happens, why the pattern happens, and severing the tie of why it is that we need to be vulnerable. When we have vulnerability, we have release, we have healing, we have an awareness that dawns on us. We have something inside of ourselves that is being cleared, but also we allow ourselves to receive at a much greater rate. So if we allow ourselves to receive at a much greater rate, we're allowing ourselves to be vulnerable towards everything. And not being afraid to be emotional, not being afraid to open up, not being afraid to vocalize what you're feeling to source and to the universe. So we allow ourselves to vocalize it, we allow ourselves to put it into awareness. And when we put it into a form that we can understand it, that we can gauge from, we can allow ourselves to be vulnerable in that moment and feel into what we're resistant towards, what we need to lose the attachment of, what we need to lose the identification of, and also just have a pleasant way of letting go of the ego, letting go of the mind, letting go of this, letting go of that, and just really sharing from the heart and allowing your heart centers to be resonating at a point to where you're able to perceive yourself once again. And you're actually coming from your gut instincts, you're coming from your heart, and you're coming from your mind, so that there's full coherence. So what this is allowing you to do is allowing you to channel more from the causal chakra. It means that you're able to receive from all the way up here, and you're able to receive all the way down to all of your chakras. So vulnerability is a state where we receive, where we let go, but also where we transform and we transmute the negative energies, the negative past lifetimes, the negative parallel realities, and also the negativity that we may feel about ourselves. So vulnerability allows you to be more creative, it allows you to be more expansive, it allows you to change your current situation here and now, and change the definition of it, and change the theme, but also change the story that you have attached to not being vulnerable. So being vulnerable is very difficult because we have to showcase ourselves in a certain way that we don't really necessarily like. And sometimes we may feel agitated towards it, sometimes we may feel sadness, sometimes we may feel depressed, sometimes our ego might get in the way of what we're trying to do, but vulnerability brings that out, and it allows you to get a sense of what we needed to learn from that lesson, from that catalyst, from that distortion that we were dwelling in. And then it allows us to transform within that moment because we're opening up and we're finally receiving. So now that we're receiving, it doesn't mean that we won't have moments where we're clearing something, we're clearing a past lifetime. Sometimes you have to have like twin flame relationships, but vulnerability allows us to be open to what the universe has in store for us. So it allows us to be open to whatever the universe wants us to become, but also whatever the universe needs from us in terms of service, in terms of opening up, in terms of how we come to terms with our own journey. And at the end of the day, it's really based on us. So it's based on how we go about the journey. It's how we are allowing ourselves to be more vulnerable and allowing ourselves to move the energy, to move the direction, but also making a real decision to take accountability. And I've been learning that very harshly here recently. So it has nothing to do with everybody else, it has nothing to do with your outer reality, but it has everything to do with how we come from this moment on and learning how to be vulnerable towards everything. From this moment on, we can literally make that change, make that impact, but also make sense of why we're not being vulnerable, or why we keep going in that pattern, or keep attracting those people, or financial situations and things of that nature. So sometimes, and I'm going to be vulnerable here, having a piss poor attitude like me can close doors. So don't close doors on yourself. Don't close doors on other people. And like this person said, it's funny we're not brought up to be vulnerable because everybody's projecting onto everybody else. That's why we're not brought up to be vulnerable. It's because everybody's like, my day's bad, my day's bad. And then when you talk about your day, then nobody cares about that. It's because everybody wants to project and promote that we don't allow ourselves to get out what we need to get out and really emote properly and not react, but be proactive towards what we're receiving and what we're going through and what we're clearing within ourselves and empowering it and trying to get a sense of like, why do we have these experiences? I don't think people really ask that out of their spouse. I don't believe they ask it out of their kids. I don't believe we ask it in school enough. We go to a guidance counselor, and that's the only person that would kind of really open up and talk about it, or a therapist. But even then, we still are being partially vulnerable. So how is it that we can really be vulnerable to the point where we're pushing through those boundaries, pushing through those thresholds, and just allowing ourselves to have those metaphysical surgeons or guides, our higher selves, and other people help us along the way so that we're able to sever the tie of what's going on in here, going on in here, going on even in here and here. Our hearing, everything, our health, everything has to do with it, because vulnerability opens everything up so that we can be more like the lotus flower and like zinnias and be able to take on the water and the miracle grow. So sometimes it's the ability to just kind of look yourself in the mirror, have that long talk in the mirror, and don't look away until you accept that person. And sometimes it's just taking accountability. Sometimes it's just owning up. And sometimes it's just not being afraid of the reflections. And if something is being reflected to you that you don't like, that's usually the indication that we need to do something about it. So vulnerability is a release, because what you're releasing is what is hindering us most of the time, what's keeping us at a certain point. And usually the divine can't always just do it for us. And I don't believe the divine does it for us. I believe the divine gives us intuition, tools, guidance, and different ways to really navigate and initiate through these different stages of the dark night of the soul, or purification, because it's purifying everything that we're going through, everything about our life, every aspect of life. Even though I don't understand it half the time, and I don't really know everything, even though I might think I do sometimes, but it's just knowing that we know nothing. We don't know it all. We don't have it all figured out, but we don't have to. That's the vulnerability. That's the humbling. That's the death of the ego. And we can eat vegetables and do these lives and all these other things, but at the end of the day, it's all up to us, because we're God made, manifested in the human form. That's what we are. We are the manifestation of life. We are the blessing. We are the resilience. We are the breathtaking aha moments. And we have to bank on those peak moments so that our valley moments are chaotic and destructive and ridiculous and redundant and irrelevant. It's really just trying to stay relevant and present with everything. And I think the toughest thing to do as a person who does meditation, as a person who's going on the spiritual journey, and even if you haven't tried to make a living from it, it takes all of us. It takes a village. It takes all of us working together and making an understanding of what we're going through. But vulnerability is a release. It's the only thing that we really have to really tap into truth, to really see the truth of everything, to see the clarity shine through. If we don't have that, then we don't have the release, and we have resistance, and we have this 5 steps back instead of 10 steps forward. So we have to allow ourselves to be vulnerable, or else we don't heal and grow and mature. And I can tell you comfortably that there's been times where I've meditated every day, and I had to at least have a good cry every single day, have a quick moment of release. And some of us are being fast-tracked, and some of us are doing so some of us are going through so much, past lifetimes, past traumas, abuse, not understanding our emotions, not understanding how to think better, not even understanding how to meditate. And it takes all of us to really understand one another and understand there's different ways to be vulnerable. There's different ways to open up. There's different ways to rise up against what we're not seeing. Sometimes what you need to see isn't directly in your peripheral. Sometimes it could be hiding in plain sight. Sometimes what you really need to see is a reflection, is circumstances, are experiences, are different ways of healing and cleansing yourself and really opening up. Because sometimes withholding and not sharing can actually be to your own detriment as well. So it's kind of a fine balance of cause and effect. We have to change our causes and our effects because they have an effect. So it's kind of a fine balance of cause and effect. We have to change our causes and our effects because they have an effect over our lives. If we change our actions, then we change the course of living. And if we change our emotions, and if we have acceptance towards ourselves and we love ourselves and we only have love within our space, then the vulnerability is always affirmative action. So it's kind of like not taking no for an answer. If you really want to be healed, if you really want to be cleansed, if you really want to awaken, just ask. And sometimes you'll get that cosmic punch. Sometimes you will get that that spiritual bitch slap, or those reflections that give you the greatest awareness. But also just opening up. It's just the ability to open up here and now. And it's just the ability to say, I need help. I can't do it by myself. Just ask for guidance. Ask for awareness. And just ask, and it will be given to you. But it's not just the pesky thing about ask, believe, and receive, because I don't think that's very effective. But I think is very effective if you ask the right aligned questions. If you ask the right questions, if you believe in what you're receiving, if you believe that your actions are led by source, if you feel like you're being pulled in the direction of your highest excitement and your highest alignment, then vulnerability gives us that conviction within our faith. Because we're letting go of this person that's trying to take hold, that's trying to direct things, that's trying to force things, and we allow ourselves to be guided by source, the guidance from source, the intuition, the love. So it's kind of like making a decision to ask the right questions, to believe in what you're receiving, and know that it will be given to you if you just open yourself up and be vulnerable for the reception that you're desiring, that really allows you to tap into your heart. Because if you're not going with your heart and you're going with your mind, that's the ego. The mind is the ego. But when it's connected to the mind and the body and the spirit, then that's where you are the higher self. That's where you are God manifested in the human form, because it is a vehicle in and of itself. But you have to allow source to use you as a vehicle. Because if we don't, then we are not allowing ourselves to contemplate, intend, and grow and understand. And then we're going to be taking on everybody else's energy, and we have to learn how to psychically protect ourselves at the same time. Because we can't just project onto other people, and we have to find those fine lines of boundaries, implementing those boundaries, and not stepping out of it. It's very hard and it's difficult. And I don't think anybody would be on the path if it was easy. And I've been shown that like over and over and over and over and over and over again. I've been shown that like several different times. If it was just easy, then everybody else would do it. But it's not, because we have to have some form of challenge, some form of overcoming the struggle, overcoming the suffering, and coming from that and then coming to the person that you are now. It's much different. Knowing where you came from and having those humble beginnings allow us to have those peak moments up the ladder. And then those valley moments isn't like a crazy water ride that's kind of more scary than fun. And it's not like at a good, water park and it's just kind of all fucked up, right? And you're sliding and you don't know if you're going to fall out of the slide or not. It's not a nice one. Like, go to a nice lagoon. If you're going to go to a lagoon, right? You want to go to that, restaurant with the 1-star rating, right? Because most people are not going to go to that unless you're a silly YouTuber and you make a video about that, right? But most people are not going to take a chance on the 1-star restaurant. They're going to take a chance on the 4-star, 5-star restaurant. So it's kind of the same way. We can choose those 5-star emotions. We can choose those 5-star peak moments. We don't have to have the 1-star peak moments, even if we feel like we're less deserving of something, which is ridiculous in and of itself. Right? Most people are not going to go to the restaurant that's in a bad neighborhood. They're not going to do that. But they're going to bank on the one that's kind of nicer, or like a hotel room, or you're not going to get, you may get something at the store for $20, but then you'll get less of that thing. So you might as well just spend the $40 on it. So it's kind of like, we do that with ourselves. And it's not the same example of what I'm talking about, but it's a good paradox to look at it, because if we're selling ourselves short, then we're buying that thing that's actually not going to benefit us more than the $40 thing, and you get more out of it instead of just cheaping out and getting the $5 thing. It's just not making any sense. So it's kind of like with our emotions. Choose those 5-star emotions. Don't go on the roller coaster ride of like dipping down and going down a downward spiral. Try to go up the upward spiral. Go upstream instead of downstream, because downstream is painful. Because if you go downstream, you're falling all the way down to the bottom of the waterfall, But if you're going upstream, then you're going up the mountain or the ladder, or however you view it. So it's just picking our poison, even though that's not a great example either. So like, pick your crazy, pick your illusion, pick your delusion. We're all doing it. We're all being human beings and doing our own things, and doing our own silly shit. So pick your own illusion. Pick your flavor. So we're going to do meditation. We're going to do meditation. I think those are all the examples I needed to use in the live. So we're going to do a meditation, so feel free to take part in this meditation. Also, I have a $40 special for $100, and also 1-hour sessions for $200 and 2-hour sessions for $300. So we're going to do a meditation about vulnerability and just release and just letting go. So feel free to take part. And I might do live readings tonight around 10 or 11 p.m. Eastern, depending on how I feel after I eat. And so it is. So everybody take a deep breath. Let go. Open up. And allow yourselves to be vulnerable in this moment. And just allow the overwhelmingness of life to subside, the noise, the chaos, the calamity, the destruction that we as human beings always think about. But let's think about something else. Let's think about joy. Let's think about gratitude. Let's think about a new attitude. a new way to think and feel and perceive and act. That means that we're becoming the video game of our life. And we can embrace the higher difficulties, and we can adapt to our environment. And we can be that video game person that has the endurance, the health bar, the skill set, the dexterity to be able to do all the things that it needs to do. And if we think of ourselves in that light, if we think of ourselves in that way, then we allow ourselves to see that maybe it's time to work on my health bar. It's time to work on my endurance. It's time to work on my thinking capabilities or my dexterity or even ways to up my abilities. If you can think of it in that way, then we don't have to beat the game in one night. We don't have to complete what we think that we're not completing or the healing that we're waiting on when really we're not waiting on it. We just need to sit down and receive. And just really allowing yourself to tap into your heart in this moment and allowing the feminine to drive everything instead of the masculine. Because without the feminine, we don't have the masculine and we don't have the inner child. It all stems from the inner child and the feminine. Then the masculine cannot do its thing. Then we don't have authority and truth and resonance and having that get up and go attitude without the feminine and the vulnerability and the compassion and the undying love, but also infused with the imagination and the playfulness and the joy and the bliss that comes from being innocent. So as we're doing this meditation, we can allow ourselves to literally transform ourselves in this moment. That we don't have to hold on to anything, that we don't have to be a burden, that we don't have to hang on to the things that make us painful, to make us distorted and negative, that we can change it to empowerment, positivity, and having the right vibrational attitude, which initiates the gratitude, what gives you the unction of grace and gives you the faith and the tenacity to start acting on the things that you really want to act on. And allows you to just open up even clearer, be more direct towards what you're doing, and no matter what is going on in your life, that you find a way to ignore the roar. You find a way to ignore even the people, the places, the things. We allow ourselves to be in our own space energetically, that we can still live life, but we don't have to take on that other energy, but we can literally just be our energy. And we don't have to know everything. We don't have to claim that we know everything. We don't have to feel like we have to force everything and feel like we have to figure it out on our own, because the divine will just guide us and initiate us and help us through what we need to do, in a sense. So it just allows us to know more and more that we can change it, that we can change how it's being perceived, how it's being emulated, what's being emanated from it, and seeing how we're able to kind of tweak it, just kind of allow it to open itself up. And just see ourselves in a much different light, and to see ourselves in a light that allows us to be a blessing everywhere we go instead of being a burden. So we can allow ourselves in this moment to just open up, to be pure, to be aware, and to just be alive. Just be here and just be vulnerable and just give yourself that moment of release and heal in this moment if you need to. Whatever past traumas, whatever hurts, whatever past lifetimes, no matter what it was, it could be abuse in any form. It could be limiting beliefs that you have. It could be frustration with finances. No matter what it is, in this moment, just allow yourself to heal that. Be pure with it, be present with it, and have patience and just demonstrate grace at this moment in time, and just embrace the Shekinah glory and just let it shine over you, and just give yourself that vulnerability, and just give yourself a moment to release and let go, and then become. And everybody just take one last deep breath. Exhale. And so it is. So I hope everyone enjoyed the meditation. Thank you for taking part in the meditation and the message. Also, you guys can book private sessions whenever you need to. Feel free to let me know in the comment sections. Also, I might go live tonight around 10 or 11 p.m. Eastern, depending on how I feel. So any of those times on the weekends, just, take part in if you want to. And if not, that's okay too. So I want to thank you guys. Be vulnerable and just release. Just let go. Just be yourselves. And that's all you need to do. And if you do that, then God will love you. And God has always loved you, even before you didn't know that He loved you. We always think that Source loves us only when we do this or that or this. But Source always loves us, even through our messiest moments. Even through our moments where being agitated or having a piss poor attitude or being just a messy human. There's always love, and there's always grace, and there's always that release for us all, and that's the only way that we heal, and that's the only way that we get on top of it and transform. So thank you guys. God bless. Namaste. And until next time, this is White Wolf. Bye-bye, guys.